Hi, I'm Callie and welcome to my kitchen. It's chili night at our house, so in this video I'm going to show you my basic chili, which is a good recipe on its own and a good chili, but with a few variations you can really make it your own. I'm going to get the basics together and then I'm going to go over some of those variations with you, and really there's endless possibilities. A good chili starts with good meat. The better the flavor in the meat, the better the flavor of the ending chili will be. My two favorites are either ground chuck or ground sirloin. I personally don't like very greasy chili. I can't handle it. So I like to use ground sirloin. We couldn't find ground sirloin today, so we're going to use the ground chuck, and I'm going to show you a method that I use to get some of the grease out. If you like the grease, you can keep the grease. Some people do like a layer of grease on the top of that bowl of chili. I'm not one of them, but I'm related to some that are. You can always use a fattier cut of meat too, if that's the flavor you like. But in this, I'm going to start with 2 pounds of ground chuck. I'm going to use the small burner today, so hopefully you can get a better shot of it. This is a 6-quart pot. If you do like to drain your meat, sometimes I will start with a cast iron skillet and then just pull the meat out of the grease and put it into the pot. But I'm tired of dishes today, so we're going to do this. And since I've handled raw meat, I'm going to go wash my hands. I just like to chop this up a little to start. I'm going to start with an onion. This is a pretty large onion. This one, 330 grams or 11.6 ounces, 11.55 ounces. So an over 11 ounce onion that I'm starting with. It was a pretty big onion because I like onion and that's a good flavor in chili. I like to peel it and get it away from my face, the peel away from my face as quickly as possible. So I put this directly in the trash. And I'm going to do a medium dice. Rinsing your hands immediately after onions will also help keep it from burning your eyes. I don't really want huge chunks of chili, so I'm going to keep chopping this up a little as it cooks. I also don't like it so small that it's like it liquefied in my chili. But I'm using 45 grams of chili powder. And I like to add this in here at the beginning to really get that flavor into the meat. It's fat soluble, and the heat from the pan at this point really helps bring out the aromas in that chili powder. I'm also going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I like to add salt at this point, even if it's only a 1/4 teaspoon. I am using some stuff that has some salt in it, but I like to add salt at this point because it really helps build those levels of flavor in there. Really, really makes a difference. You don't have to use as much salt if you add it in the beginning as if you're trying to add it to your bowl at the table. I'm adding a 1/4 teaspoon now instead of, say, a 1/4 teaspoon per bowl later when you think about it. I'm using elephant garlic. So this is pretty close to the size of a whole bulb of regular garlic. The one I'm using is right now is 1.75 ounces or 50 grams. Is this a lot of garlic? Yes. But it's one of our key flavors in this chili. And right into the pot. So I have had people ask me before, if you season the meat at this point and it's already brown, how do you tell when it's brown? Well, it's going to be a completely different texture when it's done. Done meat, done beef is a lot harder, so it's going to be a lot firmer, and you'll be able to tell. It'll also separate the meat from the grease, so you'll be able to tell a difference when it is done. We want to wait until it is completely browned or done before we add anything else, because if you add it at this point, it can kind of liquefy, and it's not a texture I'm going for with chili. So I'm going to let this cook for a few more minutes. I'm going to keep an eye on it. I don't like to stir it constantly, but I am going to stay close and keep an eye on it. So we've cooked it for several minutes, and it is starting to really render the fat. But when I push it all back, it is still quite a lot, and I think some of that is some moisture that I'm going to want to keep. So it is technically brown at this point, and it's a different texture, but I'm going to keep cooking it for a few minutes longer than when it's done to really render all the fat. Now I've cooked it several minutes longer, and if you can hear, it actually has a different sound when you've cooked the rest of that liquid off, that water off, because we do have onions and garlic in there, and some of the moisture from those is going to be in the bottom of the pan, and I like to get all of the moisture out and have it meat and fat separated before I pull the meat out, because I feel like I'm pulling even more flavor if I pull it too early. So when it sounds like you're frying meat, that's usually how I know it's done. The meat is done, but it's gotten to the point where I can separate this fat. Before, if you pull it back too early, it'll have a layer of fat and it'll look like a layer of liquid under it, or it'll be darker under it. And it's too early. Keep cooking. Cook that liquid out. So I'm going to go ahead and use a paper towel. This is usually the easiest method I find, other than 2 different pots. Is just sopping it up with a couple of paper towels. Either keep a bowl to put it in or a trash can handy. I'm not going to go crazy and start pressing it down with paper towels. If you really can't have the fat, you might want to. I have seen people pour the whole thing into a strainer and shake it and pour off the meat, which, if you're doing something like 70-30 meat and you don't want fat, I've seen people do that. Do not put this meat that we have seasoned and flavored and have all this flavor in into a strainer and rinse it with water. If you do not tell people that you did a Miss Callie recipe. You can claim that one all to yourself. But this is orange, which means we've gotten some of our chili powder. So I'm just going to taste it at this point. Now that I've gotten the amount of fat that I want out, I'm going to taste it at this point and see if I need to add any more in, because sometimes I do add more chili powder in, or if I need a little salt. So I'm just going to take a clean spoon and try that. You might find that has plenty of flavor like that, but I am going to add some back in. While this pan is hot, with the meat hot, I'm probably adding another tablespoon for my personal taste. This is why I tend to start with a leaner meat. Since I like lean chili, I tend to start with a leaner meat so I don't have to do all of that. I am taking fat out, and I know a lot of people think fat is flavor, but I'm getting plenty of flavor in this meat without having a cup worth of fat that I took out. We've cooked the chili powder, the additional chili powder, for another minute. I'm going to add tomatoes. In our house, we love tomatoes. We can't get enough tomatoes. I know some people that like their chili mostly meat with a little bit of tomato, don't want the tomato sauce, don't want any of that. What I'm going to ask is, if you try this recipe, try it with some tomatoes, but maybe use some diced tomatoes. A small can of diced tomatoes, and add the sauce and all, because the tomato juice or the tomato sauce in the can is actually going to incorporate in and make a very flavorful part of your chili. So these are whole peeled tomatoes, and all I do, since we like the big chunks, is go in and cut them and into the pot. So if you don't want those big chunks, if you can see that, I have some pretty big chunks. This is also something I switch every time. I suggest, for the amount of meat that we're using, to use 2 cans of beans. Now this is your choice. What kind of beans do you like? Do you want dark red kidney beans? Do you want light red kidney beans? Do you want one of each? Do you like black beans, Great Northern beans, pinto beans? What kind of beans? I like to play with the colors, really. I'm going to add the entire can, the liquid and all, because this liquid has a lot of flavor and it has a lot of starch. And this starchy water is going to help with the texture of our chili. The end result of our chili is going to be in part because of the meat, the juice from the tomatoes, and this water in this can, the bean water. So I'm adding in both cans. These are two 15.5 ounce cans. Well, a 15.5 ounce and a 15 ounce can. And then I did 2 28 ounce cans of tomatoes. So 40. I can't math right now. 28 ounce. You can't either, can you? I had it earlier. 56 ounces of tomatoes. If you want to do 28 or a small, do whole and then a small dice or a big dice, You do you. Cooking to me is about making it taste the way I want it to taste. So I'm going to help you get it the way you want it to taste. If you want less tomatoes, use less tomatoes. But at this point, we're just going to mix this up. Now that we've added the things that have salt, so this is a good time to taste the chili and see if it's where you want it. So I'm going to get another clean spoon. In a professional kitchen, you keep a stack of spoons nearby because you always taste something before you serve it to people. I think that's good on salt. Before you add any salt though, I'm going to use some chicken stock. I don't have any beef stock on hand. If you don't have either, you can use water, 2 cups or 16 ounces of chicken stock. You can use 16 ounces of water. But it's really just something, this is going to add another level of flavor to it. Make it one of those things that kind of makes it seem like it cooked all day. But it's also going to add some water to it to boil down to make all of this blend together nicely. It will meld together very nicely. And stir that up well. We have a small children in the house, so I'm going to move this back to a back burner so that it can't be reached. And hopefully this will be simmering soon. And we're just going to keep it stirred to keep it from sticking to the bottom. My mama used to add, she would fill the rest up with water because my brother called it chili soup. He said it was good, but it was chili soup. And then my ex-father-in-law liked his where it was like all meat. And he said the spoon should stand up in it. And I like it somewhere in the middle. I like it where it'll stand up in the bowl and stand up on my cracker. But I like to have the beans and the tomatoes in there, not just meat. So I just add enough water so that I can cook it down in the amount of time that I'm going to want to eat the chili, really. We're going to get that simmering. I'm just going to put a lid offset to keep it from splashing, but to let some of the water out, to evaporate some of the water. And I'm going to check on it every so often, every few minutes, stir it, make sure it's not sticking. If you did add water instead of stock, don't season it to taste with the water, because if you're going to salt it too much. If you salt it at this point or season it at this point, and then when that water cooks down, it's going to be a lot stronger. So try and season it before you add the water, but go ahead and taste it after you've added the stock. Make sure it's you should be able to tell a difference and have some idea. I can't give you an exact time of how long this will cook at this point. Lid offset and check on it every few minutes. Now, let's talk variations. There are a lot of variations that I have used over the years to make this chili taste slightly different or completely different, depending on what it's for, who it's for, or what I might be eating with it. We've already talked about the meat, the different kinds of meat. To an extent, to different kinds of ground meat. You could also use ground turkey. I've done ground chicken and done a chicken chili. I've done cut up chicken breast and done a chicken chili that way. Any of those grounds meat, I just use 2 pounds of meat like I did here with the same ratios. Heat. Well, like I said, we have a toddler here that's going to be eating this, so I don't want to make this too hot. But you can use, if all you want is some heat, you can use some cayenne pepper. Just remember, when you do the cayenne pepper, if you season it to taste with the cayenne pepper and you get it perfect, but then you cook it for an hour, it's going to be hotter after that hour to where you might not be able to eat it. My mom always told the story of getting it just right and then couldn't eat it at the end of her chili. This is actually going a little too much now, so simmer down now, simmer down. We're going to turn that down some. We don't want this to scorch. We don't want a smoky flavor from it burning to the bottom. But if you do want a smoky flavor, chipotle adds a nice smoky flavor and some heat. So chipotle is a good option instead of the cayenne if you like the heat. I still would do it with the chili powder and add maybe a teaspoon for this pot and taste it. But you would do that one to how hot you want it. Too much of this to me and it starts tasting a little like barbecue sauce, but that could be a flavor that you're going for depending on what you want to have it with, like a chili mac type thing. If you want chili with some chipotle for that barbecue taste with that cheese, that would actually be pretty good. Chipotles in a can are also an option that I've seen. You can get sometimes chipotles in an adobo sauce, and that would be pretty good. You could add all or just adjust some of those in there. Would season those to taste also. You can make your own chili powder with the dried Anaheim peppers, I believe it is. So the bags of pepper that you get dried, you can pull out the seeds and grind those up with a spice grinder and use that as your chili powder. That would add a nice different flavor ratio to it, or flavor to it. Cans of roasted tomatoes or seasoned tomatoes. Roasted tomatoes would be a good option for it. Then there's also fresh tomatoes. But remember, I used 3.5 pounds, or I believe that's 1.75 kilos of tomatoes. It's really endless, and you can play with it. Sometimes you can play with the color. Instead of just the flavor, I play with the color. I might add a colored bell pepper, not just a green bell pepper, but a yellow or an orange bell pepper. Add a nice pop of color, because you do eat with your eyes first. So when you see that bowl, even though it adds a sweet element with the pepper, it's going to add a lot of color. You could do corn, or you could do hot peppers, but be careful, because when you cook peppers, they do get hotter. What I want to hear in the comments is what variations you used. Let me know how you did it, what you liked, some ideas that you think would be good. I like to share ideas. Cooks like to share ideas about different things they do, and I want to hear yours. Our chili's been cooking for about an hour and 40 minutes, but it's still a very good consistency. Basically, you're going to simmer it until it's the consistency you want. It was probably done 30 minutes ago, but it was still soupier than I like. You could always add slightly less water or stock. Because this is not a hot chili, and because we have small children, I no longer fix it hot, because the first time I fixed it hot for my oldest, he kept eating it, but he was hollering in between bites, and I felt awful, so I stopped fixing it spicy then. But now he likes to have hot sauce in his, because he likes it hot. My husband adds a different hot sauce, or might add a spicy chili powder, or a dark chili powder, or cayenne pepper on it, because they like it hot. So I like to offer hot sauces. Some people like sour cream, shredded cheese, slices of cheese, crackers, oyster crackers. My husband likes cornbread, so I always make him cornbread to go with it. I like to offer people the things they like with it. When I was a lot younger, my ex-father-in-law was over, and he was eating, we'd planned a chili night, and he's like, I have to have jalapeno slices on mine. I like jalapeno. I like my chili spicy. I like jalapeno slices on top. That's the way I like it. Okay, well, I make spicy chili, but if that's how you want it. He said, no, it's not going to be spicy enough. I need those jalapeno slices. I said, okay. So he had his jalapeno slices. We had the cheese. And I made it spicy because there was only the 3 adults eating it. So I made it spicy like I like it spicy. And I think I must have used a tablespoon of cayenne pepper in that chili to begin with, and then cooked it for an hour or more. And so he comes over and he's getting his bowl. And I said, now taste that chili before you add anything to it. And he said, no, I like it spicy. And he loads it up with jalapeno peppers. And he walks out of the room. I said, are you sure you want to do that? He's like, no, I like it spicy. And he walks out of the room, stand there and wait for it. And I hear, oh! And he comes right back in the room, and he's throwing the jalapenos into the garbage because he couldn't eat it. And he said, girl, that is spicy. That is hot. Why didn't you warn me? He knows I love him. That's the relationship we have. He's one of my dads, and he has been since I was a teenager. And so part of the way I cook chili is because of the way he likes his, where it's real meaty. But we do like to mess with each other still about things like that. But the point of that being, if I'm not making a spicy chili, I offer things to make it spicy. I like to offer something that goes with the chili I'm making also. I like to offer what they like, but also something that I know is going to go with this chili. So this chili isn't spicy, I offer spicy. If I'm making a spicy chili, I offer cheeses or sour cream to cool down the heat. In this case, one of the cheeses we're using, we're going to try a Chipotle Gouda with it. I like the extra sharp cheddar. So we're going to try different things. I always just like to try different things. Now that it has splashed all over my stove, and scoop this up. We have white extra sharp cheddar right now. Some cheese around, Gouda, because Gouda's just good. So some Chipotle Gouda with it, crackers, and if you can see that. And that's how I like mine. You ready to try some of this, love?
Oh yeah.
Now remember, I've been trying it along the way. He hasn't tried it yet.
Can't wait to get some of that Gouda.
You need some of that. You need some of that Gouda. That's what you need. Give us a like if you like that recipe. Hit subscribe so you can see more as we're coming out with some. Anything you like to do. Anything you'd like to see us do on this channel. Videos. Any kind of explanation on anything that I need to do. But also, let me know how you made this chili. Y'all have a good one. Y'all watch up. Let's eat.